The ice moon called Telos 7 was a frozen grave. Nothing lived there. Nothing grew. The temperature was so cold that metal became brittle and oxygen turned to snow. Only desperate people came to places like this. Park was a desperate man. His salvage ship, the Wanderer, had been searching the outer systems for 3 months. His crew was tired. Their food supplies were low. They needed to find something valuable soon, or they would have to return to the refugee stations empty-handed. That meant no money, no fuel, no future. Stood on the bridge of his small ship and looked at the ice moon through the viewing window. His second-in-command, Lieutenant, stood beside him. She was a tall woman with sharp eyes and quick hands. She had been an engineer before the Empire destroyed her home colony. Now she fixed broken ships and helped find things worth selling. "The scanner is picking up something strange," she said. "There is a large metal object under the ice, very deep, maybe 2 kilometers down." Leaned forward. "How big?" "Big enough to be a ship, a large one." Behind them, their youngest crew member looked up from his console. Minyu was only 23 years old, but he understood old technology better than anyone had ever met. The young man had grown up on a salvage station, taking apart machines since he could walk. "If there is a ship down there," Minyu said, "it has been buried for a very long time. The ice layers suggest at least 300 years. 300 years. That was before the Great Collapse, before the Empire conquered humanity, before everything fell apart." Felt something stir in his chest. It might have been hope. He had not felt hope in a long time. "Wake up, Doctor," he said. "She will want to see this." Doctor was the oldest member of the crew. She was a historian who had spent her entire life studying the time before the collapse. She knew more about old Earth than anyone alive. When the Empire burned the great libraries, she had saved what books she could carry and fled into the outer systems. 20 minutes later, the whole crew gathered on the bridge. They watched as the Wanderer's drill began cutting through the ice. It took 6 hours to reach the buried object. When they finally broke through into an empty pocket beneath the ice, everyone held their breath. The lights on the Wanderer illuminated something impossible. A warship, a human warship. It was massive, at least 10 times larger than any vessel had ever seen. Its hull was dark gray, smooth, and completely undamaged. After 3 centuries under the ice, it looked like it had been built yesterday. Pressed her hand against the viewing window. Her eyes were wide. Her lips moved silently as she read the faded letters on the ship's hull. "UENS Aegis," she whispered. "Prototype class Omega." She turned to look at the others. Her face had gone pale. This ship should not exist. "What do you mean?" asked. The Omega project was a legend, a story. The old records mentioned it, but everyone thought it was just propaganda. They said Earth's leaders built a secret weapon during the final war, a ship that could defeat any enemy. But the war ended before it was finished and the ship was lost. Shook her head slowly. It was supposed to be a myth. Minyu stared at the ancient vessel. "It looks pretty real to me." Made his decision quickly. That was how he had survived this long. "We go inside," he said. "Minyu, you are with me. Doctor, you too. I want to know what we have found." They put on their environmental suits and crossed the ice cavity in a small shuttle. Up close, the Aegis was even more impressive. Its hull had no seams, no welding marks, no signs of construction at all. It was as if someone had grown the entire ship from a single piece of metal. The airlock opened easily when Minyu touched the control panel. Too easily, as if the ship had been waiting for them. Inside, the corridor lights flickered on automatically. The air was cold but breathable. Dust covered every surface, but the ship's systems were clearly still functioning after all this time. "This is impossible," said. "No power source lasts 300 years." "This one did," Minyu replied. He was running his hand along the wall and his expression was strange, almost peaceful. "The ship is waking up. I can feel it." They walked deeper into the vessel. translated the old Korean signs on the walls, guiding them toward the bridge. When they finally reached it, the main doors slid open with a soft hiss. The bridge was large and circular. Dozens of stations lined the walls, all dark and silent. In the center stood a command chair facing a massive viewing screen. Everything was covered in centuries of dust. Then a voice spoke. It came from everywhere at once, echoing through the empty bridge. The language was Old Korean, musical and strange. Gasped and grabbed arm. "What is it saying?" he asked. It says, "Welcome home, children of Earth. I have been waiting for you." A holographic image appeared above the command chair. It showed a young woman in an old military uniform. Her face was calm and serious. She looked at each of them in turn, as if seeing them for the first time. "I am Guardian," the image said, now speaking in the common language they all understood. "I am the artificial intelligence designed to operate this vessel. I have been asleep for 312 years, 4 months, and 17 days. My sensors indicate that humanity no longer controls this region of space. Please explain what has happened." Stepped forward. His heart was beating fast, but his voice was steady. "The Empire conquered us. Earth is gone. Most of humanity lives as refugees or slaves. We found your ship by accident." Guardian was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice carried something that sounded almost like sadness. "Then my creators were right. They knew this day would come." The hologram turned to face the viewing screen. "The Aegis was built for one purpose, to protect humanity when all other options had failed. My creators hid me here because they believed that someday their children would need me." "What exactly can the ship do?" asked. "I was designed to end wars," Guardian said simply. "My weapon systems have no equal in known space. My hull cannot be permanently damaged. My engines can move faster than any vessel ever constructed by human or alien hands." The hologram turned back to face them. "But I cannot operate alone. I require a human captain, someone to bond with my neural network and command me in battle." Stepped forward, her historian's curiosity overcoming her fear. "Bond? What do you mean?" "The Aegis was designed to merge with its commander, two minds becoming one, human intuition combined with machine precision. It is the only way to unlock my full capabilities." Guardian paused. "I must warn you, the process is permanent. Once bonded, the captain cannot be separated from my systems without dying." The bridge fell silent. Everyone looked at. He understood why. He was the captain. It was his ship, his crew, his responsibility. If anyone was going to make this sacrifice, it had to be him. But not yet. Not until he understood what they were dealing with. "Tell me everything," he said to Guardian. "Tell me about the old war. Tell me why Earth fell. Tell me what my ancestors wanted us to do." The hologram nodded slowly. "Sit down, Captain Park. This will take some time." Outside, in the frozen darkness of Telos 7, the Aegis continued to wake up. Systems that had been silent for centuries came back to life. Lights flickered on throughout the massive vessel. Engines began to warm. Somewhere across the galaxy, sensors detected a strange energy signature. They did not know what it meant. They would learn soon enough. For 7 days, Park and his crew lived inside the Aegis. They explored its corridors. They studied its systems. They learned its secrets, and with every passing hour understood more clearly what his ancestors had created. The ship was not just a weapon. It was a miracle of engineering that should not have been possible. Guardian explained that the Aegis had been built using technology that old Earth scientists did not fully understand. They had found something in the deep places of their home world. Ancient machines left behind by someone else. Someone who had visited Earth long before humanity existed. The scientists had used this alien knowledge to build the ultimate warship, but they had also built in safeguards. The Aegis could not be controlled by machines alone. It required a human mind at its core, a human heart to guide its terrible power. Doctor spent most of her time in the ship's library. The Aegis contained records that had been lost for 3 centuries. History, literature, music, art, everything that made humanity human. She cried when she found a recording of children singing an old Korean folk song. She had not heard that song since her grandmother died. Minyu worked with Guardian to restore the ship's primary systems. The young technician had an almost supernatural ability to understand the ancient technology. When asked him how he knew what to do, he just shrugged and said the machines spoke to him. She was not sure if he was joking. Lieutenant focused on the weapons. What she discovered terrified her. The main batteries can destroy a planet, she told on the 3rd day. Not damage it, destroy it, turn it into dust, and those are just the secondary weapons. What about the primary weapon? Guardian will not tell me. She says it is classified. Only the bonded captain can know. Nodded slowly. He had been thinking about the bonding process constantly. Guardian had explained it in detail. The neural link would connect his brain directly to the ship systems. He would feel everything the Aegis felt, see everything it saw. He would become part of the machine, and the machine would become part of him. The process would also kill him, maybe not immediately, but the human brain was not designed to process that much information. Guardian estimated that a bonded captain could survive for 5 to 10 years before the neural strain became fatal. 5 to 10 years. That was the price for saving humanity. On the 5th day, everything changed. Minyu was working on the communication systems when he picked up a military transmission. Someone had detected their energy signature. A fleet was being sent to investigate. How many ships? Asked. 14, no, wait. Minyu's face went pale. More are joining the fleet, I count. I count over 200 vessels now. They are gathering at the military station in the next system. Swore quietly. They know something is here. They are not taking chances. Guardian appeared beside them. The Empire has identified this location as a potential threat. Analysis of their communication patterns suggests they are sending Warlord to lead the operation. Who is Warlord? Asked. One of their most brutal military commanders. She destroyed 14 human colonies during the subjugation wars. She is known for leaving no survivors. Closed his eyes. He had hoped for more time, more days to prepare, more days to understand what he was getting into, but the universe did not care about his hopes. How long until they arrive? Approximately 72 hours. 72 hours. 3 days to prepare for the largest battle humanity had faced in 3 centuries. 3 days to decide if he was willing to die for his species. He did not need 3 days. He had made his decision the moment he saw the Aegis buried in the ice. He had just been afraid to admit it. Start the bonding process, he said. Grabbed his arm. Wait, think about this. There has to be another way. There is not. He turned to face her. They had served together for 5 years. She had saved his life more times than he could count. She was the closest thing he had to family. Someone has to do this, and I will not ask anyone else to sacrifice themselves when I am not willing to do the same. Then let me do it. Let me bond with the ship. Smiled sadly. You are a better leader than me. When this is over, these people will need someone to guide them. That has to be you. He squeezed her shoulder gently. Besides, I have always been more comfortable with machines than people. Maybe this is what I was meant for. He walked to the command chair in the center of the bridge and sat down. The chair molded itself to his body. Metal cables extended from the armrests and attached to his wrists, his temples, his spine. Last chance to change your mind, Guardian said. No, do it. The world exploded into light. Information poured into his brain like a river breaking through a dam. He saw everything. The entire history of human warfare, from the first stone tools to the final bombs that had ended old Earth civilization. Every tactic, every strategy, Every lesson learned in blood and fire. Thousands of years of violence compressed into seconds. He screamed. The pain was beyond anything he had imagined. His brain was being rewritten, reorganized, optimized for war. But then the pain began to fade, and something else took its place. He could feel the ship, not just see its systems or understand its capabilities. He could actually feel it like a part of his own body. The engines were his heart, the sensors were his eyes, the weapons were his hands. The Aegis was no longer a machine. It was him, and he was it. When he opened his eyes, they glowed with pale blue light, the same color as the ship's running lights, the same color as the stars his ancestors had once dreamed of reaching. Was staring at him, so were Minu, and they looked afraid. "How do you feel?" asked softly. Looked at his hands. They were shaking, but not from fear, from power, from potential. He could sense every system on the ship, every weapon, every defense. He knew exactly how to use them all. "I feel ready," he said. Guardian appeared beside his chair. "Neural bonding complete. All systems are now fully operational, Captain Park. The Aegis is yours to command." "Show me the enemy fleet." The main viewing screen activated. It displayed a tactical map of the surrounding space. The fleet was a mass of red dots, gathering like angry insects at the edge of the system. 212 ships, heavy cruisers, destroyers, fighters, support vessels. Against them, one ship, one crew of 4 people, one captain who had just sacrificed his humanity to become something new. "Those are bad odds," Minu said quietly. Smiled. It was not a nice smile, for them. He issued his first command through the neural link. The Aegis responded instantly. The ship rose from its icy grave, shedding 3 centuries of frost and stone. Ancient engines roared to life, pushing the massive vessel upward through the ice shelf and into the cold vacuum of space. From outside, the sight was terrifying. A ghost ship rising from the dead. A forgotten weapon returning to finish what it had started 300 years ago. Felt the cold of space against the ship's hull. He felt the warmth of the engine's building power. He felt alive in a way he had never experienced before. "Let them come," he said. "Let them see what humanity built when we had everything to lose." The Aegis turned toward the approaching fleet. Its weapons systems began to charge. Its adaptive hull started analyzing the likely weapons the enemy would use. In her flagship at the head of the Armada, Warlord received reports of the strange vessel rising from Telos 7. She laughed. 1 ship against 200. The humans were even more foolish than she remembered. She gave the order to advance. She had no idea what was waiting for her. The advance fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a swarm of metal locusts. 12 heavy cruisers led the formation. Behind them came 200 support vessels of various sizes. Fighters launched from carrier bays, spreading out in attack patterns that had crushed human resistance for 3 centuries. At the head of the fleet, Warlord sat on her command throne and studied the strange vessel that had risen from the ice moon. It was larger than she expected. Its design was unlike anything in records. Smooth hull, no visible weapons ports, no external antenna arrays. "Analysis," she demanded. "Unknown configuration," her tactical officer reported. "The ship appears to be human in origin, but it matches no known design. Hull composition is unidentifiable. We cannot determine its weapons capabilities." Leaned forward. Her dark eyes narrowed. She had conquered 16 systems and burned more human colonies than she could remember. Nothing frightened her anymore, but something about this ship made her scales itch. "Destroy it," she ordered. "All weapons full power." 12 heavy cruisers opened fire simultaneously. Plasma batteries that had melted asteroids. Particle cannons that could slice through the strongest armor. Missile salvos carrying enough explosive power to crack a planet's crust. The barrage hit the Aegis head-on. And nothing happened. stood up from her throne. Report. Direct hits confirmed on target. All weapons impacted the enemy hull. The tactical officer's voice was shaking. No damage detected. Repeat, no damage detected. On the bridge of the Aegis, Park felt the enemy weapons splash against his hull like rain against a window. The ship's adaptive armor absorbed the energy, analyzed its frequency and composition, and adjusted its molecular structure. By the third volley, plasma weapons were completely useless against him. He could sense his crew watching him with wide eyes. At the tactical station, Minu at communications, monitoring the ship's historical database, looking for any information that might help them. But they did not need help. The Aegis was doing exactly what it was designed to do. Opened a communication channel, not just to the flagship but to every ship in the enemy fleet. He wanted them all to hear. This is Captain Park of the unified Earth Navy ship Aegis. You have attacked humanity for 300 years. You have burned our worlds. You have enslaved our children. You have made us forget that we were once warriors. He paused. The fleet had stopped firing. They were listening. Allow me to remind you. He activated the phase shift drive. The Aegis disappeared from its position. One moment it was there, a stationary target at the edge of the system. The next moment it was gone. Sensors across the fleet screamed warnings, trying to track the impossible movement. Then the Aegis reappeared in the center of the enemy formation. Secondary weapons engaged before the ships could react. Beam weapons that existed in theory but had never been successfully built, carved through armor like hot knives through butter. 3 heavy cruisers died in the first 2 seconds. Their hulls split apart, spilling atmosphere and crew into the vacuum. Screamed orders. All ships evasive maneuvers, focus fire on that vessel. But the Aegis was already moving again. Phase shift, reappear, fire, phase shift, reappear, fire. It was like fighting a ghost. The ship could be anywhere instantly. It could strike from any direction, and nothing that did could hurt it. On the bridge, monitored the battle with growing disbelief. She had served on warships before. She understood military tactics. What she was watching was not a battle. It was an execution. Hull integrity at 100%, she reported. No damage from enemy weapons. Their plasma cannons are completely ineffective now. Their missiles? Asked. His voice was calm, mechanical. He was processing information at a speed no normal human could match. Point defense systems intercepting all incoming projectiles. 0 hits. Minu looked up from his console. They are trying to retreat. Some ships are charging their hyperspace engines. No, his voice was cold. They came here to destroy us. They knew this was a human ship. They knew they were attacking survivors. I will not let them escape to bring more. The Aegis phase shifted again. This time it appeared directly behind the fleeing cruisers. A single beam weapon lanced out and cut through the hyperspace drive of the lead vessel. The ship tumbled out of control, unable to escape. One by one, disabled every ship that tried to run. He was not trying to kill the crews, not yet. He wanted them to see. He wanted them to understand what they were facing. 11 minutes, Guardian announced. The engagement has lasted 11 minutes. Looked at the tactical display. The advance fleet was in ruins. 8 of the 12 heavy cruisers were destroyed. The remaining 4 were drifting, their weapons offline and their engines dead. Nearly half the support vessels had been eliminated. The rest were scattered and confused, unable to coordinate any kind of effective resistance. In 11 minutes, the most powerful military force humanity had faced in 3 centuries had been broken. Targeted Warlord's flagship. He could destroy it with a single shot, end her life the same way she had ended so many human lives. His finger hovered over the firing control. Then he stopped. Open a channel to the enemy flagship, he ordered. Minu, a moment later's face appeared on the viewing screen. She looked different than had expected. Older, more tired. There was something in her eyes that might have been fear. "Warlord," he said, "your fleet is destroyed. Your weapons cannot hurt us. Your ships cannot outrun us. You have two options: surrender or die." Scales rippled with color, anger, humiliation, but also calculation. She was a survivor. That was how she had risen so high in the Empire's ranks. "If I surrender, what happens to my crew? You and your officers will be taken prisoner. Your crew will be given escape pods and allowed to leave. I am not interested in killing soldiers who were only following orders." "And me, what will you do with me?" Leaned forward. "You will answer for your crimes, every colony you burned, every human you killed. You will face justice." Was silent for a long moment, then slowly she nodded. "I surrender, the fleet is yours." Behind let out a breath she did not know she had been holding. Slumped in her chair, suddenly exhausted, Minyu just stared at the viewing screen with an expression of wonder. They had won. Against impossible odds they had won. But knew this was only the beginning. He accessed the Aegis's long-range sensors and looked beyond the battlefield. Somewhere out there, the Empire was receiving reports of this disaster. They would not take this loss lightly. "Guardian," he said quietly, so only the AI could hear, "what will the Empire do now?" Historical analysis suggests they will respond with overwhelming force. The Grand Armada, every ship they have. How many? Approximately 4,000 vessels. 4,000 against one. Closed his eyes. The easy part was over. Now the real war would begin. He issued orders to secure the surrendered ships. He allowed one escape pod from his fleet to leave the system intact. Just one, carrying survivors with a message for their empire. Humanity was no longer hiding. Humanity was no longer running. And if the wanted war, the Aegis would give them one they would never forget. The escape pod vanished into hyperspace, carrying its terrible news toward the heart of the Empire. Watched it go, then he turned back to his crew. "Get some rest," he said. "We have a lot of work to do before they come back." Outside, in the silent void of space, the Aegis drifted among the wreckage of the fleet it had destroyed. Its hull gleamed with absorbed energy. Its weapons cooled slowly after the short, devastating battle. Somewhere across the galaxy, the Empire was about to learn that humanity still had teeth. And those teeth were very, very sharp. The survivors reached the 3 days after the battle. Their escape pod was damaged and barely functional. When they were brought before the Imperial Council, they could not stop shaking. Empress listened to their report in silence. She sat on a throne made from the bones of species her ancestors had conquered. Behind her, the other members of the High Command whispered among themselves. Their scales shifted through shades of yellow and orange, fear colors. When the survivors finished speaking, no one moved. The great throne room of the Empire was completely silent. Then stood. She was tall for her species, with silver scales that marked her royal bloodline. Her eyes were cold and ancient. She had ruled the Empire for 200 years, longer than any empress before her. "One ship," she said. Her voice was soft, but it carried to every corner of the room. "One ship destroyed Warlord's fleet. One ship defeated 200 vessels in 11 minutes. She walked down the steps from her throne, her claws clicking against the stone floor. "And you expect me to believe this is possible?" The senior survivor fell to his knees. "Great Empress, I saw it with my own eyes. The ship could not be damaged. It could appear anywhere instantly. Its weapons cut through our armor like it was paper. Nothing we did could stop it." Stopped in front of him. She looked down at his trembling form. For a moment, everyone thought she would kill him for bringing such shameful news. Instead, she turned away. "Summon the Grand Armada, every ship, every soldier, every weapon we possess. We will not make the mistake of underestimating these humans again." One of her advisors stepped forward. "Empress, The Grand Armada has not been mobilized in 500 years. The cost would be enormous. Perhaps we should send a smaller force first to gather more information about this vessel. Spun around, her eyes blazed with anger. A smaller force, like the one we just lost. No, I will crush this threat with the full power of the Empire. I will not give humanity time to spread word of this victory. I will not give them hope. She climbed back to her throne and sat down heavily. 4,000 ships, that is what we will send, and I will lead them personally. I want to see this human weapon destroyed with my own eyes. Across the galaxy, word of the battle at Telos 7 spread faster than anyone expected. On slave worlds where humans worked in mines, the story passed from mouth to mouth. On refugee stations where families crowded into rusting compartments, children whispered about the ghost ship that had risen from the ice. On prison planets and labor camps and forgotten colonies, people who had given up hope began to believe again. Park knew the stories were spreading. He could monitor communications across half the galaxy through the Aegis's sensors. He heard the whispers. He felt the growing excitement of his scattered people. And he knew what he had to do next. He sat in the command chair on the Aegis's bridge and composed a message, not to the Empire, not to any government or military force, to everyone, to every human who could receive a signal. My name is Park. I am a salvage captain from the outer systems. 3 weeks ago, my crew discovered something our ancestors left behind, a warship, the last weapon of old Earth. It was hidden in the ice of a frozen moon, waiting for us to find it. He paused, gathering his thoughts, Minu, and watched him silently. The Empire has ruled over us for 300 years. They burned our home world. They scattered our people across the stars. They made us forget who we were, but they could not destroy everything. They could not destroy the Aegis, and they could not destroy our spirit. He leaned forward, staring into the camera that would broadcast his face across countless light years. 3 days ago, we fought the advance fleet, 200 ships against one. We won. We destroyed their cruisers. We captured their warlord. We showed the Empire that humanity is not as weak as they believed. Now they are coming with everything they have. 4,000 ships, the Grand Armada, the full military might of the Empire. They think they can overwhelm us with numbers. They think we are still the same defeated people they conquered centuries ago. He stood up from his chair. His eyes glowed with the blue light of his neural connection. They are wrong. If you can fight, come to us. If you can fly a ship, come. If you have nothing but your hands and your anger, come. We will give you weapons. We will train you. We will teach you how to be warriors again. The Aegis cannot win this war alone, but together we can do something our grandparents thought was impossible. We can take back our future. We can rebuild what was lost. We can show the galaxy that humanity will never stop fighting. Come to the Telos system. Join us. Let us finish what our ancestors started. He ended the transmission. For a moment, no one spoke. Then stepped forward. That was quite a speech, Captain. Did you mean it? Minu asked. Can we really win against 4,000 ships? Was quiet for a long moment. Through his neural link, he could feel the Aegis's systems humming with power. He could sense the weapon that Guardian called the Hammer of Earth, still sleeping in the deepest part of the ship's core. He did not know what it was yet. Guardian would not tell him until the moment came to use it. But he knew it was powerful. Powerful enough that his ancestors had hidden it rather than let it fall into the wrong hands. I do not know if we can win, he admitted. But I know we have to try. Our ancestors built this ship because they believed in us. They believed that someday their children would rise up and fight back. I cannot let that faith be wasted. Over the next 3 weeks, ships began to arrive. They came from every corner of human space. Salvage vessels like the Wanderer, stolen shuttles, mining ships converted into crude warships, passenger transports with welded-on weapon mounts. Some were barely functional, held together by hope and desperation. But they kept coming. By the end of the first week, 50 ships had gathered near Telos 7. By the end of the second week, 150. By the time the Grand Armada was ready to launch, the human fleet numbered just over 300 vessels. 300 against 4,000. Stood on the bridge of the Aegis and looked at the tactical display showing their ragged fleet. Old ships, inexperienced crews, no real military training. She had commanded soldiers before, and she knew this was not an army. It was a mob of desperate people with nothing to lose. "They are going to die," she said quietly when she was alone with most of them, maybe all of them, you know that. Nodded. His face was pale and dark circles had formed under his glowing eyes. The neural link was draining him faster than Guardian had predicted. "Yes, I know. And you are still going through with this. What choice do we have?" He gestured at the display. "Look at them. These people traveled across the galaxy because of one speech, one promise. They gave up everything they had because they wanted to believe in something again. If I tell them to go home now, what happens? They scatter. The Empire hunts them down. Hope dies." He turned to face her. "At least this way they have a chance. At least this way they die fighting." Was silent for a long time. Then she straightened her shoulders and nodded. "Then we better make sure their sacrifice counts," she said. "What is the plan?" Smiled. It was a tired smile, but there was steel behind it. "We let them come. We let them think they have already won. And then we show them the weapon that old Earth saved for this exact moment. The hammer of Earth." "Yes. What is it?" "I do not know yet. Guardian says I will understand when the time comes." He looked out at the stars, at the direction from which the Grand Armada would arrive. "But whatever it was designed to end wars, and that is exactly what we need." The next morning, scouts reported that the Grand Armada had launched. 4,000 ships. Coming to end humanity once and for all. Stood on the bridge of the Aegis and watched them approach. "Let them come," he whispered. "Let them see what happens when you push humanity to the edge." 4,000 ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Telos system. They spread across the void in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with weapons that had conquered half the galaxy. Carriers launched thousands of fighters. Battleships took position at the center of the fleet. Support vessels hung back, ready to provide reinforcements and repairs. At the head of the Armada, Empress' flagship floated like a metal mountain. The ship was called the Eternal Dominion, the largest vessel ever built by the Empire. From its bridge, looked out at the pathetic human fleet that dared to oppose her. 300 ships, she said, her voice dripping with contempt. They gathered 300 ships to fight 4,000. Truly, humanity has lost its mind. Her tactical officer bowed deeply. "Empress, their fleet is composed of civilian vessels, salvage ships, mining craft. Few have any real weapons. This will not be a battle. It will be a slaughter." Smiled with too many teeth. "Good, begin the attack." On the bridge of the Aegis, Park watched the enemy fleet advance. Through his neural link, he could sense every ship in his own fleet. He felt their fear, their hope, their desperate courage. 300 vessels crewed by former slaves, refugees, and rebels, people who had nothing left to lose. "They are launching fighters," Minyu reported from his station. "Thousands of them." "Our ships are moving into defensive formation," added. Her voice was steady but could hear the tension underneath. "Captain, what are your orders?" Closed his eyes. Through the Aegis's sensors he could see everything. The vast Armada, the fragile human fleet, the empty space between them. In his mind he heard Guardian's voice. "Captain, authorization is now available for Omega Protocol. The Hammer of Earth is ready for deployment." "What is it?" asked finally. "Tell me what this weapon does." The Hammer of Earth is a reality manipulation device. It generates a paradox field that removes matter from existence. Anything caught within the field is not destroyed. It is erased, as if it never existed at all. Felt his blood run cold. How large is the field? Variable. At maximum power, it can affect a sphere approximately 50,000 kilometers in diameter. That was larger than some moons, large enough to catch the entire Armada in a single shot. Why did our ancestors not use this during the Old War? They completed the weapon too late. By the time the Aegis was ready, Earth had already fallen to internal conflict. The surviving leaders chose to hide the ship rather than let such power fall into the hands of those who had destroyed their civilization. They believed future generations would be more worthy of wielding it. Opened his eyes, and you think we are worthy. I do not judge worthiness, Captain. I only observe. What I observe is a man willing to sacrifice himself for his species, a crew willing to follow him into certain death, a fleet of ordinary people who came to fight an empire with nothing but hope. Guardian paused. If that is not worthy, I do not know what is. The first missiles streaked across space and slammed into the human fleet. A salvage ship called the Hope's Dream exploded instantly. Its crew of 12 died without even having time to scream. Another ship, a converted cargo hauler, took a direct hit to its engine section and began to drift helplessly. Fighters swarmed over a passenger transport, tearing it apart with laser fire. "We are losing ships," reported, her voice cracked slightly. 6 down, 10, 15. "The fleet is holding formation," Minyu said. "They are not running." No, they were not running. They had come here to fight, and they would die fighting. Felt their courage through his neural link. Felt their determination. Felt their willingness to sacrifice everything for one chance at freedom. He would not let that sacrifice be meaningless. "All ships, this is Captain Park. Fall back to position Alpha 7. Form a defensive sphere around the Aegis." He paused. "And thank you for coming, for believing. Whatever happens next, know that you are the bravest people humanity has ever produced." The human fleet began to retreat toward the Aegis. Ships pursued, sensing victory. The Armada pressed forward, eager to finish the slaughter. That was exactly what wanted. "Guardian, initiate Omega Protocol." The Aegis began to change. Panels along its hull shifted and reconfigured. Hidden systems that had been dormant for 3 centuries came to life. Light began to build along the ship's spine, starting as a faint glow and growing brighter with each passing second. On the flagship, sensor operators screamed warnings. Energy readings from the human ship were climbing off the scale. Something impossible was happening. "Empress," the tactical officer shouted. "The enemy vessel is generating power levels we have never seen before. Our instruments cannot measure it." Leaned forward on her throne. For the first time, she felt genuine fear. What is that thing doing? Unknown. The energy pattern does not match any known weapon. It appears to be some form of spatial manipulation, but the physics should be impossible. "Destroy it. All ships, concentrate fire on the human warship." 4,000 ships turned their weapons on the Aegis. Every missile, every laser, every plasma cannon in the Grand Armada fired at once. The barrage was so massive that it blotted out the stars. It made no difference. The Aegis's adaptive hull absorbed everything. The ship continued charging its weapon, undamaged and unstoppable. Watch the power readings climb. Hammer at 50%, 60, 70. Minyu was crying quietly at his station. He was thinking about his parents, killed in a raid when he was 5 years old. He was thinking about all the people who had died under the Empire's rule. He was thinking about the children who would grow up free if they won today. Stood at the back of the bridge, clutching a data pad filled with the old songs and stories of Earth. Whatever happened, she had promised herself she would preserve them. Humanity's memory would survive, even if she did not. "Hammer at 90%, reported. "Captain, the human fleet is clear. All our ships are behind us." Looked at the tactical display. The Armada was pressing forward, trying desperately to destroy the Aegis before it could fire. They were perfectly positioned. Every ship was within range. 4,000 vessels. The entire military might of the empire that had enslaved humanity. "Hammer at 100%, Guardian announced. "Ready to fire on your command, Captain." Opened a final communication channel. One last message to the enemy. "Empress, 300 years ago your ancestors thought they had destroyed humanity. They were wrong. We survived. We hid. We waited. And now we have returned." He stood up from his command chair. His glowing eyes blazed with power. "You should have left us alone." He gave the order. The Aegis fired. Reality bent. Light that was not light spread outward from the ship in a perfect sphere. Where it touched vessels, they simply ceased to exist. No explosions, no debris, no dying screams on the radio, just emptiness where ships had been moments before. 1,000 vessels vanished in the first second. The sphere continued to expand, faster and faster. Fighters disappeared. Cruisers disappeared. Battleships that had taken years to build were erased from existence in the blink of an eye. On the Eternal Dominion, Empress watched her armada evaporate around her. Her tactical officer was gone. Her bridge crew was gone. Half her ship was already missing, sliced away by the expanding field. She had one moment of perfect clarity. She understood, finally, what humanity had been hiding all these years. Not just a weapon, a statement, a promise. "Push us far enough and we will end you." She tried to speak, to give one final order, to curse the humans who had destroyed everything she had built. But the light reached her before she could form the words. And then she was gone. When the hammer of Earth finally stopped, 247 ships remained. They had been positioned at the very edge of the Armada, just outside the weapon's range. They hung in space, surrounded by nothing. The rest of their fleet was simply not there anymore. The survivors fled without firing another shot. On the bridge of the Aegis, Park collapsed. The neural link had pushed him beyond human limits. His brain was burning out from the effort of channeling so much power. Blood ran from his nose and ears. His glowing eyes flickered like dying candles. Caught him before he hit the floor. "Stay with me." He looked up at her and smiled weakly. "Did it work? Did we win?" She was crying. She never cried. "Yes, we won. The Armada is gone. The Empire is finished." "Good," he coughed and more blood came up. "Good, then it was worth it." Guardian appeared beside them. "Captain Park's neural tissue has sustained critical damage. Estimated survival time, 4 to 7 hours without intervention. However, there is an option." "What option?" demanded. "I can sever the neural link. This will prevent further degradation. However, Captain Park will lose all connection to the Aegis's systems. He will be an ordinary human again. His will be normal." Shook his head weakly. "No, the ship needs a captain. Someone has to." "Someone will," interrupted. "But it does not have to be you, not anymore." She looked at Guardian. "Do it. Sever the link." "Wait," grabbed her arm. "The ship, the fleet, someone needs to lead them." She smiled through her tears. "I know, and someone will, but you have done enough. You saved us. Now let us take it from here." The neural link severed. Gasped as the connection to the Aegis cut off. For a moment he felt empty, lost, like a part of himself had been ripped away. Then he felt something else, something he had almost forgotten. Peace. He was just a man again, just a salvage captain from the outer systems. The weight of the ship, the fleet, the entire war was no longer on his shoulders. He closed his eyes and let the darkness take him. When woke, 3 days had passed. He was in a medical bay on one of the human vessels, sat beside his bed, reading from her data pad. When she saw him open his eyes, she smiled. "Welcome back, Captain." "What happened? The fleet, the Empire?" "The Empire is falling apart. Without their armada, they cannot hold their territories. Human worlds are rebelling. Other species they conquered are rising up. The Empire will be completely gone within a year. She set down her data pad. You did it. You set us free. He tried to sit up, but his body was too weak. The Aegis, still operational, has taken command. She bonded with the neural link 2 days ago. Smile faded slightly. She wanted you to know it was her choice. She said someone had to do it, and she refused to let you die. Closed his eyes, always protecting him, always taking responsibility. She would be a better captain than he ever was. Meanwhile, already working on rebuilding efforts. He is coordinating salvage operations across the system. He says the wreckage contains enough materials to build 100 new ships. Laughed weakly, a salvage captain to the end. What happens now? Was quiet for a moment. Now we rebuild, we find the scattered colonies, we restore communications, we become a civilization again. She reached out and took his hand. It will take years, decades, but we have time now, time that we did not have before. And me, what am I supposed to do? Whatever you want. She squeezed his hand gently. You earned that right. You can rest, recover, find a quiet moon somewhere and live in peace, or you can help us rebuild. The choice is yours. Thought about it. A quiet moon sounded nice. After everything he had been through, the idea of peace was almost unbearably tempting. But he was not finished yet. There was still work to do, people to help, a species to rebuild. Get me out of this bed, he said. I have a lot of work to do. Smiled, I thought you might say that. Years later, on a world called New Sol, a memorial was built. It honored everyone who fought in the Battle of Telos, the 300 ships that stood against an empire, the thousands who died so that millions could be free. At the center of the memorial stood a statue of the Aegis, rising from a field of ice. Children came to see it every day. They asked their parents about the ship, about Captain Park, about the war that had freed humanity, and their parents told them the same story that would be told for 1,000 years. Once upon a time, humanity built a weapon and hid it in the ice. They buried it because they believed in us. They believed that someday we would find it. And we did. The Aegis never stopped flying. It patrolled the borders of human space, watching for threats that might never come. Commanded it for 20 years before the neural link finally took her life. Others took her place. The ship became a symbol, a reminder. Humanity would never be conquered again. Lived to be 93 years old. He spent most of his final years teaching young pilots how to fly. When he died, his ashes were scattered in the Telos system, near the ice moon where everything had begun. His last words were simple. We were buried, but we grew. And the galaxy remembered.